at that all-important place at the lathe. So this time I thought I would take a break from the in-depth videos and maybe do something a little bit more fun, sort of a self-contained turning tip. So what I have for you is an idea what you can do with old gouges, that is gouges that have gotten too short, either if you use a jig to sharpen and there's no longer enough of the tip sticking out of the jig to sharpen, or if you freehand sharpen and it's gotten so short that the tool handle has started bumping into the grinder platform. Now the truth is I could probably get a little bit more mileage out of this gouge, but I like this idea so much, I think it's so cool, that I couldn't wait to share it. So I went ahead and got a replacement, so that freed up this one. So what I'm going to do with this 1/4 inch gouge is I'm going to turn it into a 1/4 inch small beading tool. Now this isn't my idea, I've seen several turners do this, but that doesn't change the fact that it's still a pretty cool idea. Now one of the reasons I think this idea is so cool, having a dedicated small beading tool, is that small beads are the hardest to make to do and hard to get it to look right. And a lot of times when you have a series of beads, they're also small beads. So not only is it difficult to make the beads look good, to get them to all look the same and to have consistent spacing is actually quite challenging. Converting this small gouge into a beading tool is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to keep the flute straight up all the time, and this platform is about 40 degrees, and I'm not even going to worry about the bevel angle that much. I'm just going to guess about 60 degrees, and I'm just going to grind away this whole area until I get back to the back of the wings. And periodically dip it into some water. Because it's high-speed steel, it's not going to really do much to the steel, but it gets too hot to touch after a while. So you can see by regrinding that way, the flute ended up forming this nice bead shape. So the way we're going to use this, we're actually going to use it upside down the way you normally use a gouge, and it's effectively becoming a scraper. Now using the tool is painfully simple. I'm simply going to turn it upside down so that both of these edges are flat on the tool rest, and just plunge it straight in. So both edges flat in the tool rest, the tool more or less horizontal, and then stick it right into the wood. And I find you can go straight in if you want to, but I find it helpful if you swing the handle back and forth just a little bit. It kind of speeds up the process. And we have perfect 1/4 inch bead. Now the nice thing is I can line up this right edge with the left side of the first bead, and I can make another bead right next to it, exactly the same size. And you can keep going. So we end up with a bunch of exactly the same size beads, equidistant apart, just like that. Now we're not limited to just using this tool for beading. You can also use it to mark off 1/4 inch intervals. So there's my first 1/4 inch interval. I just line up the point with the previous groove and keep going. Let's say if I wanted to use these, if my goal was to make some V-grooves, now I can just simply use those V-grooves as a reference with another tool. and there it is. Now because we're using this tool as a scraping tool, we can actually use it directly into end grain. Now I know we haven't discussed, we haven't talked about scraping directly into end grain yet, but it can be done if it's done right. The three things you want to make sure you do correctly is, because we're scraping, we don't need a lot of speed, so we can slow down the speed quite a bit. The other thing is to not be too aggressive. Don't try to plunge this thing really forcefully into the work. And the other thing is to get tool rest as close as you can to the work. That way any leverage issues won't be really an issue. But other than that, we're going to do the same thing. Gently plunge the tool directly into the work. Rotate the handle back and forth a little bit. And here comes our bead. And just like before, we can continue and make another bead. You can imagine how useful this could be for making knobs and pulls for furniture. And we could have just as well, just like in on the side grain and spindle work, we could have just as easily marked these off as well and turned them into grooves with a point tool or some other tool. And as being a scraper tool, of course, there's no reason why we can't use it in face work as well. So first on side grain, let me raise the tool hand a little bit. I want to get those points right near the center. And once again, just plunge the tool right in. Now, even though this is side grain, face work, you can get fairly large diameters, and so you can have a lot of speed coming by. So you may also want to slow down the speed right here. Unlike cutting with bevel rubbing cuts, scraping doesn't benefit the same way. It doesn't get that any cleaner like speed with cutting with regular bevel rubbing cuts does. So we don't really need the extra speed here. So you can see this might be a really nice place to use a beading tool, maybe to make some drink coasters, instead of having to spend all day trying to get all those beads perfect with a gouge. You can just make quick work of it with a beading tool. And of course we can still use it to mark off. And change those into little grooves. And being a scraper tool, we can even use it directly in end grain and face work, but we just have to be extra careful here. All the same things that applied to using this beading tool in end grain and spindle work, it's just amplified here. So we want to make sure we're going nice and slow. Don't need a lot of speed for this. Don't want to be aggressive. We want to be gentle as we plunge in, and we want to have that tool rest as close as we can, because we can get a pretty good leverage catch here still. But as long as we do all those three things, we should be fine. Being able to do beads directly into end grain on face work can actually be quite useful, because they're actually pretty tricky to do with a gouge, because we can't use our usual, we can't get the tool in the right place to use our usual cuts. And we can also, of course, mark things off. So I thought it was a pretty cool way to give an old gouge a second life as a beading tool. I find these tools can be really useful when you want to make a series of beads, and as we saw, because it's a scraping tool, we can use it pretty much anywhere. As well, I'd like to know what people think about this kind of video mixed in with the other kinds of videos. It seems that this playlist is evolving into three sort of videos. There's those in-depth videos where we take a close look at how to cut grain in particular situations, how the grain reacts with different cutting angles and so forth. And then there's the President's Challenges, which are more conceptual, more of a sort of, hey, check this out, look what you can do in the lathe kind of thing. And now this is a third kind of video. It's a quick one-off kind of tip, cool thing that you can do. So let me know what you think about those styles of videos. Is there one, are you mostly interested in the in-depth stuff? Is it nice to have lighter topics like this mixed in? So if you have any thoughts on this, feel free to leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. So that's what I have for you this time. So until next time, I'm Brian Havens, and thanks for watching.